And hello, and welcome to another episode of The Cheap Seats. This is your weekly English Premier League show on One World Sports Radio. We discuss all the things that are happening in the English Premier League. We're going to end up discussing Arsenal. It's a 4-5 clash, top of the table clash type of vibes. It's been a while since I've said that about my club. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the managers that have come in, managers that have gone out, but most importantly, Steven Gerrard is now manager of Aston Villa. That's our first topic of the day. And I've got Waheed, I've got Dean to discuss it. We're going to go through what Norwich decided to do because I think they're probably on their way back into the championship. And we're gonna talk about the other new managers. Well, the Italian at Spurs, Antonio Conte, and then we're going to talk about what happens next with Ole now that the board's given him another stamp of approval, which to the rest of us is like you're going to get fired probably at the end of the season, but we'll get there. Gents, how are you doing? How was your international break? Did you watch any of the Arsenal youngsters doing big things for England?
Did you mistakenly just call Harry Kane an Arsenal youngster? Because he's the one that was banging in the goals.
He was an Arsenal youngster. Didn't get that wrong.
He definitely wasn't an Arsenal youngster. There's one photo of him in a red shirt. That's it.
There are photos.
One photo. And we were all young, and we all supported terrible teams when we were young. So don't.
I've literally supported United since I was a kid.
So, terrible team since you were young. So it's fine.
Yeah, Dean, you're talking about when we were younger, telling us about quoting Adele lyrics. So you, Adele, and your football club, all in the same grouping there. Steven Gerrard is back. We didn't have him in our Premier League 11s. Like, that was pretty surprising to kind of note. But he's back. Not at Liverpool, though. That's the fun one. He's back at Villa. Waheed, what does this do for Steven Gerrard's career ambitions? He won one title at Rangers. Doesn't have the longest managerial CV, but winning a title at Rangers, playing in Champions League, is this the step in the right direction for Steven?
Well, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see because we don't actually know the level of that Scottish league. The last managers to sort of go to the Scottish league and come back was Brendan Rodgers, who we'll talk about later in the show because there's all sorts of links going on there. But Brendan Rodgers did have quite an extensive CV in England before going to Scotland. So Gerrard isn't exactly comparable to Rodgers, and we'll have to wait and see how he's going to do. I can't tell. I don't think anybody can. But personally, I just hope that he does just enough at Villa to con Liverpool into giving him the job, and then I hope he reenacts the Graham Souness years at Liverpool, where a club legend runs them into the ground. So that's my hope for Steven Gerrard's career. And at some point, I hope that he'll reenact his 2005 transfer request, which he did when he was a player, and put in a request to move to a bigger club and fail dismally and win no titles like he did as a player.
Wow. Okay, bitterness aside.
I don't know if you
no bitterness at all.
Steven Gerrard, with everything inside me, I hate him.
Okay, we kind of get it. But bitterness aside, Dean, can he turn this team around? Villa are nowhere near the Villa of last season. They actually did quite well in the transfer market, and I think everybody agrees that they did. That squad is a very good mid-table European side that's knocking on the European spots, but they're not doing that well. They've lost 5 in a row. Can he turn it around?
I mean, I think the tools are definitely there at his disposal. You look at that squad. Fine, losing Grealish is obviously a big hit to any team, but like you said, they did pretty well in the transfer market. I mean, getting Buendia, who was the top assist maker in the championship last season with Norwich, getting Leon Bailey from Bayer Leverkusen, I think it was a really big signing for them. That back line doesn't look terrible. I mean, Matty Cash and Matty Target aren't terrible players, so if he decides to go wing backs, it could work. I think there's definitely tools that Gerrard could use because we can all admit that Villa are underperforming from what we would have expected them. to be able to do, especially with the likes of Ings and Watkins up front. You would expect them to be able to be scoring a little bit more. I know Ings is injured, but expect them to be able to put a few goals away at least and be slightly higher than where they are at the moment. And I think Gerrard can do that. Obviously, as Waheed said, the Scottish League is a very different league to the Premier League. But when he got announced, he did win the league with Rangers. So it's not that he doesn't know what he's doing as a manager. Whether or not he can bring that to the Premier League, we'll wait and see. But if anything, I think Villa fans will just be happy to be above where they are now. I don't think none of them are expecting to finish top 4 or even top 6, but I think they do expect to be maybe mid-table, probably top half of the table. So call it like 10th, 9th or 10th. I think Villa would be happy with, which is a reasonable expectation at the beginning of the league anyway, for anyone that would have looked at that Villa squad. So the tools are there. I would like to see Gerrard use them properly because I think Villa could be a really good team if used properly. And yeah, we'll see. It's just interesting that Villa's got a better coach than United. So
we'll see about that. Do you not think that Villa have done a little bit of a Spurs there in terms of what Spurs did post Bale in buying a bunch of above average players who are not quite as good as what they had, and just taking a little bit of time to adjust to that new status quo instead of having one main man having about 6.
But where were they going to find? Who was that main man on the market that they could have bid for?
I'm not saying that they needed to go and replace a main man with a main man. It's just an adjustment period from losing your talisman and having 6 players replace one player type of thing.
So no, true, and to a certain extent, which is why I think Dean Smith really struggled, because half the time last season when Villa were deadlocked with teams or needed a game breaker, it was always throw the ball to Jack Grealish. Ollie Watkins gets into position. You don't have that anymore. Buendia is a lot more slightly deeper lying than Grealish, and he's not going to push forward. And I think they're missing that guy, and they're trying to find it with like Traore or Bailey trying to push them up. And this whole Ollie Watkins, Danny Ings thing one needs to play, one needs to bench. It didn't work out. But I'm with you there, and it's some of those things where it has to take time. I kind of felt that Villa weren't patient enough, but it's also one of those situations where if you're a club like Villa who've been relegated before, losing 5 in a row puts you before December puts you in a very.
One of them was against the Nuno Spurs team, which anyone could beat us. So.
I don't think you can write off that Ings and Watkins partnership completely. If they play a back 3 with wing backs, you could potentially play 2 centre forwards. But the problem is then you're going to sacrifice a player like Leon Bailey, who doesn't fit into that back 5 system. Similar to the issue we have with Jadon Sancho, because he's not really fit. Well, okay, that's another story. We'll get there just now.
Yes. The other thing that I looked at, I liked what Villa did from a style perspective, right? The squad that Gerrard had at Rangers, right? The style of play he played is what Waheed would say is like United-esque, where he had some very quick wingers. He had a very strong defensive midfielder who just kind of controlled the game. And then he had some quick guys who could run around wide. And I think it can work now, even if they don't need to go to a back 3. If they play a back 4 and he can motivate them enough and get the right pieces in the right places, I think this squad kind of works for Gerrard. He doesn't need to do a lot of work. Similar to a guy we're going to talk about, Eddie Howe, he's going to have to do a lot of work because that squad is just hopeless.
Key player under Gerrard, if he was to reenact his Rangers sort of style, would be John McGinn, I think. John McGinn would be very pivotal to that style of play, and he could dictate the play from the middle of the field. I think he's also missing his mate Jack Grealish at the moment, but as soon as they've settled into a new status quo, I think John McGinn will probably be the most important player in that Villa side.
And I would even see times where probably Buendia is the one benched, McGinn playing at the 10, and probably even have Nakamba and Costa there behind them just to sort it out. But speaking about another team, obviously Gerrard, Newcastle didn't go for Gerrard, which is wild to say the least. They went and to a certain extent they went and got Eddie Howe. He's another young manager, British manager, so there's that British premium. Is that premium a little too high for a guy like Eddie Howe with a club that has the ambitions of Newcastle and that's currently in trouble right now in the Premier League, Waheed?
Newcastle are have a very weird situation going on, because on one hand, their ambitions are probably to win the league and the Champions League in the next few years, but at the same time, their most current pressing issues to avoid relegation. There's sort of a dichotomy in their plans at the moment. So they can't get to where they want to go if they get relegated, and that's the most pressing need. So Eddie Howe kind of makes sense in that role, since he's been well, I'm not sure. You could have gone with a firefighter type of manager in Big Sam Allardyce or someone along those lines to fight the fire and keep Newcastle up. But I think Eddie Howe probably has the know-how. He took Bournemouth from Division 2 to the Premier League and kept them there for 5 years. It's not like he has no clue what he's doing. And I know Bournemouth weren't always in a relegation scrap during those 5 years and often punched above their weight. And that's probably just what Newcastle need. They need to punch above their weight, because they have a squad of like some bang average players. So they need to tread water probably till January, where they can scour Premier League benches and get in the likes of Jesse Lingard. Or France. And get in the likes of Jesse Lingard and Dean Henderson and Tony Marshall, and please take all our crap players.
Crap, you just described Dean Henderson as crap.
Phil Jones or Eric Bailly, I think they would die of those two.
But anyway, so I think Eddie Howe probably makes a bit of sense for them to tread water, get to January, make some astute purchases, and then try and make a post January run to avoid relegation. If they do that and they avoid relegation, I suspect Eddie Howe will also be a good manager for the medium term. Maybe not the long term in terms of winning a league, but maybe a medium term manager in getting them to 10th and 8th, because I don't think you can go from 17th to 3rd in a season. So I think it's a good option based on their medium term aspirations. Avoid relegation now and build going forward.
Okay, Dean, I know Spurs were looking at Eddie Howe in the summer to see if he can come in. One of my biggest worries was if you give him a purse of cash to say, look, dude, we're Spurs now, a little bit of a level, look up and see what players would you like. I was worried about that. You get like a David Moyes-esque situation where he arrives at a big club and his eyes light up because he's got all this money, and you end up with a Fellaini.
Or in his case, it's Gordon Ibe.
Yeah, he was the Gordon Ibe transfer.
Yes. Does he have that ability, as what he talks about the medium term? We kind of know he's got like a floor. He can help them not get relegated. But is his ceiling that high enough for this Newcastle team to say, the next 3 years we can hopefully be top 10 material and also knocking on the Champions League door, but with a manager who can find players at that level, at that European level, that can work, similar to how Brendan Rodgers is somehow hitting home runs with Leicester, with guys we've never heard of, and Leicester just seemingly there and thereabouts.
Yeah, I think, whenever one of the top clubs fired their coaches, Eddie Howe's name was always kind of in the mix. So people do respect him. I think the bigger question is, like you say, can he do that with a squad or with a transfer budget that is bigger than what Bournemouth's was, or with a club that wasn't punching above its weight? And I think if you have a look at the signing for Newcastle, I really liked Newcastle signing Eddie Howe because I think it shows ambition for Newcastle fans. If they had gone and signed a Sam Allardyce, it would kind of signal to the fans of, we're still exactly the same. We just want to stay up and then we'll worry about the problems later. I think with an Eddie Howe getting the job, it kind of shows to them like, look, we planning for more than just next month or this season. Like, it shows a little bit more ambition for the club, and the Newcastle fans will hopefully respond really well to that and will see that as a positive rather than a negative, and will kind of get behind him. the one thing that I think does play in Eddie Howe's favor is that he obviously has the Callum Wilson connection from his days in Bournemouth, where Callum Wilson was doing really well at Bournemouth, as well as Ryan Fraser on the bench, who hasn't played a lot at Newcastle. But if he can kind of invigorate those two players again at Newcastle, it could mean really great things for both the players, but also for them to kind of kick on and start scoring a little bit more, start winning a few more games, which is what the guys want to see. So I think the Eddie Howe makes sense at Newcastle. It will be interesting though to see what kind of transfer budget he gets in the summer, because if, like we said, he was the guy whose record signing was Jordan Ibe, and the guy was horrendous. So obviously it's not a great history of signings, but he stayed out of managerial jobs for long enough, and he did say in one of his interviews he was looking for the right opportunity with the right ambition and looking for a proper challenge. So I think he's hopefully, for his sakes, gone away and developed himself and kind of gained a lot of understanding and learning about football. And I've always liked Eddie Howe, maybe because a lot of guys say he looks like me, so maybe I have a little soft spot for Eddie Howe. But I think he makes sense for me at Newcastle. I think if he had to come to Spurs, I wouldn't be distraught, but it's definitely a medium to long-term project that you have with Eddie Howe. He could be the next Pochettino if he goes and does his job properly and
but
can
Pochettino
get out of
doesn't
this.
win trophies. That's what Newcastle want.
He will win trophies when he comes back home.
He can take Newcastle to challenging and then leave.
That's why I have a soft spot for him, maybe. I just like guys that don't win.
So I think for me with this, I love this spot for Eddie Howe. The only problem is that squad is hopeless. Like, folks, like I can take the right back, I can take Callum Wilson and St. Maximan and possibly even Jamal Lascelles and even Sasha Dubravka. That's it. Outside of that, I don't want to see John Joe Shelby in my life. What are those other twins or brothers in that midfield? Yeah, the Longstaffs, they need to leave. Like, guys, we need a
United, he really does. Them. Don't worry.
Yeah, but he has an opportunity to build a and here's the thing. I think everyone's talking about how City have done this thing, but he has a chance to build like a United-esque type of transition with a Sir Alex, where he comes in, he revamps the entire club. It will take time. The question is, how patient are the Saudis? And then as it goes and you build and you give him time, he can. I think he's got the ability to do that. He did that with Bournemouth. And if instead of saying we want to win something in 10 years, if you say that, look, let's be competing in 5 to 10, let's see how it's going with a manager who's stable, and guys will come to our club because you are stable, you're in the Premier League. Let's see if you can grow with this guy because he's young, he has a high ceiling, and we hope that it's not Moyes-esque, but he actually does do something and he builds it up. So I think for me, that's why I'm with Eddie Howe. Waheed?
What the Saudis will want is Newcastle's version of Robinho. That statement signing to say that we've arrived, we're here, we're going to spend money. And that for City was Robinho, and I'm sure Newcastle will want a similar thing. It's probably that Arab sort of mentality of let's do this, let's show our money and that sort of thing. And I'm very interested to see who that player is going to be, because somewhere along the line there's going to be that statement signing. Yes, they will be chasing the likes of Jesse Lingard, I'm sure, and Dean Henderson and all these Premier League players who could make them survive the season, but they will want a statement signing. And I'm looking at Barcelona and thinking that somewhere along the lines they're going to raid that Barcelona side for one of their players. Barcelona need the cash. And Dembele is the one that's screaming at me like,
no
money for Dembele.
That would be the worst signing
anywhere.
ever.
No.
That would be the worst signing ever. He's so injured. He's injury prone. It's ridiculous. Like, why would you want to buy a guy who's effectively on the physio's bed?
Just the statement. I'm just looking at what the statement is going to be.
Yeah.
I'd
Makes
rather
sense.
them go to Real Madrid and ask for Luka Modric. Bring back a 35-year-old Luka Modric and see what you can do with him. But yeah, so that's the statement signings aside. We know Norwich signed Dean Smith as their manager after he got fired. He'll be the first manager to play another team twice in 2 consecutive weeks because Southampton got him fired and he starts with Southampton. Guys, my opinion on Norwich is they're going down. Dean Smith doesn't change anything. I just this managerial signing shows where they are, and they'll always be the yo-yo club.
I think Dean Smith just has bills to pay. He was like, I'm out of a job. Anything that comes knocking, I'm there. So yeah, I don't think the Dean Smith appointment doesn't mean anything. I'm actually, the way Norwich is performing actually makes me worried for the championship. And I know they had a lot of players that maybe left. Like Ollie Skip was there from Spurs on loan, and obviously Buendia was a big factor, and Cantwell's obviously been injured. So yeah, fair enough. 3 big players from Norwich which aren't there anymore, aren't playing. But for Norwich to go from winning the championship to you literally just the battering team of the Premier League, it shows the very big difference in quality between Championship and Premier League, which is worrying because you look at a team like Brentford who got there. I think they won the playoff. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they won the playoff loss, and they now coming into the Premier League and they are doing really well or doing better and don't look like they're going to get relegated. So it's almost like if you win the championship, it's a bit of a bogey. Like, I don't know what's wrong with the championship.
Leeds survived.
But there's always only one. There's only one team that gets promoted that kind of kicks on. So, Norwich are going down. There's no doubt. There's no doubt about it. But yeah.
So, moving on to managerials and everything else, we've been talking ad nauseum about Ole at Manchester United. That run of games that he had, City, Spurs. He had was it Chelsea?
Liverpool.
Liverpool, yes, where it was just horrible. They still have Chelsea to come. Waheed, where do you sit with Ole now after that run of games? Was that Spurs game the game that saved his job? Or is it one of those situations where, because we don't have another international window, we're just going to carry on with this up until March?
Yeah, I suspect so. I think that if he'd lost that Spurs game, he probably would have been given City, and then after the City game, I suspect he would have been fired. So I do think probably that Spurs game saved his ass a bit, but everything points to the fact that the only reason he's still in a job at the moment is because the club haven't yet got a replacement in. And there was talk about Darren Fletcher coming in as an interim, but as I said previously, Darren Fletcher wouldn't change the status quo. And what we've talked about on the show before is maybe the coaching is an issue, and these players need a bit of coaching. And what would happen with Darren Fletcher is that the backroom staff would remain exactly the same. Darren Fletcher would come in, he's technical director at the moment, and nothing much would change. The tactics would stay the same, the coaching would stay the same, nothing would change. So there's no real point in pulling the trigger if the replacement is from within. So I think that Ole probably bought himself some time, a stay of execution, if you will, by smashing Spurs. He probably did Spurs a favor.
It was the best thing that ever happened to Spurs.
Yeah, by smashing Spurs.
No, so, but didn't he also took off the candidate that would have replaced him by smashing Spurs?
You're playing 4D chess.
He's losing.
Yeah. Anyway, so I suspect that the club are probably sounding out a bunch of replacements. We've seen the links to Brendan Rodgers, which is probably the strongest links we've seen in the media so far, and the word out from not the most credible source, but Samuel Luckhurst of Manchester Evening News is that the Glazers have actually spoken directly with Brendan Rodgers about 3 weeks ago, and it's just about the timing of the appointment rather than who the man is, and he is apparently the preferred candidate, which I'm quite happy with. If Brendan Rodgers were to be the man, I wouldn't be averse to it. I think he's earned the right to go back to a big club. I don't think he did badly at Liverpool. He did very well at Swansea. He went away and cut his teeth at Celtic and had good success there. And he's come back and had success with Leicester. Let's not forget that. Yes, he's fallen short in the league a few times, but winning the FA Cup with Leicester is actually a very good achievement. Yeah. If we look at Leicester's league success under Ranieri, that can almost be attributed to a flash in the pan, like the stars aligning, a perfect storm type of thing. But the FA Cup under Rodgers is something they built towards. They built towards it. They molded the squad to a way where he could win, and he's been very good at both his recruitment and improving the players he has. So I wouldn't be totally averse to it. The other names mentioned, Erik ten Hag, yeah, I get that, but I very much doubt he'd come to United. He's very much a person who's worked for football men all his life, and I doubt he'd take a job where he's working for a banker. So, and the B in the word banker can also be replaced with a W. Make of that what you will. So, yeah, I doubt Ten Hag would take the job at all. And personally, I don't want Zidane. I don't think Zidane is the man.
You just don't like Frenchmen.
His wife doesn't want to go to Manchester, man.
You just don't like Frenchmen.
He'd just be another Mourinho and Van Gaal.
Oh, guys.
Instead of making an appointment that suits. No, listen. Instead of making an appointment that suits the team and the squad, we'd just be taking the best of what's available.
Wouldn't you want a Paul Pogba under Zinedine Zidane?
I want Paul Pogba gone, and you know that. I hate that. If Zidane means that Pogba is signing a new contract, then absolutely not.
Dean, what did you?
So my only thing. So this is the only thing, and Waheed, you tell me what you think. Rodgers' record in the league is not great with Leicester, which he gets to a point, and then there's always that kind of wall that they hit towards the end of the season.
The February-March fall away.
Yeah, where like they're going to finish top 4, but then they finish 6th, right? Does that not mean or kind of point to the fact that Rodgers can pull it together on a day where like he does win the FA Cup with Chelsea, but he can't do it constantly? Or he can't do it kind of throughout 38 games a season. He can rock up for 1 or 2, and the FA Cup, he can kind of get there, and you might win a cup trophy. But from a United perspective, are you not then more worried that if you get Rodgers, your Premier League success is tainted a little bit because of that? Or do you think United will cure him of that hitting the brick wall again? Because I think from a United fan, they're like, we want to do it for 38 games. We don't want to have the stars align, like what you said, and just maybe win the Europa League or the FA Cup.
So I'm going to say something, and don't misconstrue what I'm saying. I'm not comparing Brendan Rodgers to Jurgen Klopp. But when Jurgen Klopp came in, his team struggled towards the end of the season. On the back end of the season, Jurgen Klopp's side struggled. And that's because of the heavy metal football that Jurgen Klopp likes to play. And Brendan Rodgers has a similar style of football. It's sort of a little bit more refined with more of a passing philosophy than Jurgen Klopp's all-out heavy metal football. That's the branding that he has. But Brendan Rodgers' sides run a lot, and what's happened, what I think has happened, both at his Liverpool days where he fell apart towards the end of the season, and now at Leicester, is that his players tire and he has a thin squad. And I think that if that were to happen at United, he'd probably have less of a thin squad. United's squad is one of the most bloated squads in Europe, and it can actually cope with 38-game league season if used correctly. It's currently not being used correctly. Yeah. It's currently not being used correctly at all, but the team and the squad should be able to cope with a 38-game season. So I think that's probably the difference that you'll see between his current Leicester side, his Liverpool side of a few years ago, and if he were to take on the Man United job.
Okay, I'd like the Brendan Rodgers signing. I'm not sure what the United faithful would think about it, because it feels Moyes-esque, but I think this guy has done a little bit better than Moyes in terms of being able to play in and around the top 6. And I think it would be a good signing. I just don't understand if they were talking about timing. These last 2 weeks were the perfect time to fire and hire, maybe even do a swap deal with Ole Gunnar Leicester and Brendan Rodgers coming across to Manchester United, because guys, we didn't have football for 2 weeks and they could have done this.
Yeah.
They could have gotten with a new manager, but it's fine. We'll wait. The next international break's in March, so we've got a whole lot of football along the way. I just don't know when Manchester United are going to pull the trigger, because it might get a little bit tough. But anyway, enjoy this weekend of football. Arsenal's playing Liverpool, so that's going to be fun. The young kids playing against the Liverpool side, which I think are very diametrically apart in terms of not necessarily style, but quality. But we'll see about that. Thanks, Waheed. Thanks, Dean. Until next week, this is your Cheap Seats. And remember to like, subscribe, and follow us on all the different platforms. Goodbye, good night. And I'll remember FPL show tomorrow, so please do join us then. And goodbye, good night, and lesale.